How do you build a strong character? I mean, really think about it. Is it something that's forged in the fire of a crisis, or is it something you have to meticulously construct, piece by piece, in times of peace? Today, we're going to dive deep into this fundamental conflict between two really powerful philosophies on how to shape the human soul.
So on one side, you've got this idea of the dark forest, a worldview where your virtue is basically a survival mechanism, a product of constant danger. And then on the other side, you have the quiet lodge, where it's all about intentional, focused work. These are the two competing workshops for the human spirit, and we're going to break them down.
To really get Machiavelli's perspective, we have to start with his raw material, what he saw as the rough ashlar. He basically saw this as humanity's default setting, unrefined, chaotic, just driven by our most basic instincts. It's a stone that, in his view, needs to be violently chipped into shape. And then, in a totally different corner, you have the Masonic ideal, the smooth ashlar. Now, this isn't some stone that got shaped by accident or because some external force bashed it into place. No, this represents a perfected character, one that's been carefully and, most importantly, voluntarily polished through hard work and moral choice.
So, what is the true catalyst for character? This really gets to the heart of the debate, doesn't it? Is it that external fire of conflict, or is it the internal will, that personal drive to improve?
Well, for Machiavelli, the answer was pretty simple, and honestly, pretty brutal. He famously said, "Danger cleanses the soul." He truly believed that only the immediate threat of danger, we're talking war, ruin, total collapse, could purify a person or a society. It strips away all the weakness and forces you to become sharp and capable.
Yeah, he was convinced that without an enemy at the gates, people just get lazy. They become complacent, decadent. Peace, in his mind, doesn't build character at all. It actually erodes it. It removes that essential pressure that, for him, is the only thing that creates real strength.
The Masonic tradition, though, offers a completely different tool for the job. Instead of a sword to cleanse, it offers the trowel. And its purpose isn't to purge weakness through fear. Not at all. It's about actively building strength by binding people together with shared values and mutual support, that cement of brotherly love.
Okay, so here is the crucial difference, laid out plain and simple. Machiavelli sees virtue as a reaction. It's something that's forced on us by the outside world, by war, by fear. But Freemasonry sees it as a proactive choice. It's an internal labor we decide to take on because it's a moral duty.
Now, this difference in philosophy, it leads to these vastly different ambitions for society. I mean, both believe in expansion, but they are trying to conquer entirely different kinds of territory.
For Machiavelli, the world is just this relentless, zero-sum game. A state must constantly expand its power and territory. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. And if you're shrinking, you're going to get consumed. Standing still, that's not an option. It's basically a death sentence.
And this table just reframes the entire idea of conquest. For Machiavelli, it's about physical territory, land and power, and you get it through fraud and force. For the Mason, expansion is about conquering ignorance within the human mind. The method, truth and charity. The goal isn't conquest, it's enlightenment. Totally different worlds.
All right, so let's look at the role of law and order. Both of these systems rely on strict rules, but for fundamentally different reasons. So, are they chains to control a beast, or are they tools to build a temple? Machiavelli believed that if you don't have a real war, a wise leader has to basically invent one. He called this artificial necessity, creating these harsh, unforgiving laws that mimic the discipline of a military camp, all to make sure the population never, ever gets soft. Masons also live by very strict rules, symbolized by the square. But this tool isn't meant to keep them battle-ready for some external enemy. No, it's an internal guide for morality, to make sure one's own actions are just, true, and fair, square, in all their dealings with people.
And this just reveals their polar opposite views of peace. Machiavelli saw quiet time as the breeding ground for chaos. But for the Mason, that exact same quiet is the sacred space, the workshop, where the real work of self-improvement is actually possible.
So what about our own time? In an age where global conflict threatens total annihilation, Machiavelli's great cleanser of war just isn't a viable option. So where, then, do we find that pressure that supposedly creates diamonds? What's left to forge our character?
Well, the argument is that we now find ourselves in a new kind of dark forest, the relentless, competitive, and often isolating world of modernity. The challenges are definitely different, but that need to build character, that remains exactly the same.
And this is where the Masonic tradition offers a really compelling solution. If peace makes us soft, then the lodge can act as a sort of voluntary training ground, a self-imposed necessity where individuals choose discipline, accountability, and virtue when the outside world doesn't force it on them.
Ultimately, the argument comes down to this. A soul that's been merely cleansed by trauma is one thing, but a character that is intentionally built, brick by brick, in the quiet of peacetime, well, that's a far greater and more noble achievement.
So that leaves us with the ultimate architectural choice, doesn't it? Will you build your character like a fortress, designed only to withstand attack and born out of pure necessity? Or will you build it like a temple, a monument to virtue, constructed by choice,